session is to hear your comments and your questions. This is an opportunity for all of you to learn what it is like to have careers in fixed income. Feel free to ask anything you'd like. We're going to have a networking reception after, right outside in the lobby from 6:30 to 7:30. You're all welcome to join us. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Thank you all for leaving your desk early today to get out to Waltham. We very much appreciate that. So we are going to start with Sheila May. Sheila is from GW&K Investments. She is Principal and Director of the Muni Bond Research Desk. And then we have Thalia Meehan. Thalia is our Portfolio Manager, Investment Manager, and she is from Putnam. And who's next? Lee is next. So Lee Sardone is Managing Director at Wellington, and he is a fixed income trader. And in addition to buying and selling securities for Wellington, he's also working with clients that invest in tax-exempt and taxable munis. And then we have Eric Tomas, and this is our rock star Bentley alum right here. Yes, I'm going to give him a little clap. Claps for everyone, but especially the Bentley alum. So Eric Tomas is Managing Director and Manager of Fixed Income Trading Technology at Wellington, so he is responsible for all of the e-commerce initiatives that are going on in Wellington. And we had a very interesting conversation with many of these panelists beforehand about the critical importance of having some kind of coding experience or CIS minor experience, so we're happy to chat with you about that throughout the session. And then lastly, we have Angela Patel. And Angela is with Putnam Investments, and she is responsible for everything that happens to that trade after it is executed. So she is the gatekeeper to make sure that nothing goes wrong in the trade. All right, so this is our panelists. Again, thank you very much for joining us. And just lastly, I'd like to thank Denise Thompson, who is here with us tonight. Denise is an executive from Breckenridge Capital. She is one of the senior members of our Huey Center Advisory Board. Denise is a fixed income executive herself, and she is the reason why we are here this evening. Thank you, Denise, for collecting all this great talent up here. Okay, without further ado, pleasure? Yes, we do. Yep.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. And you know, I love fixed income. So I'm thrilled that that is the focus of tonight's session. We thought we'd run through a trade, so we're going to start in the order in which everyone is seated. First, Sheila will talk about global financial. Then we're going on portfolio management, followed by trading and execution. Thalia will do portfolio management, Eric Lee will do trading and execution, and then Angela will follow through with trading ops. They are very interested in investing, and I want you to take notes if you're one of my students, please, so we can discuss it further at another time. You will find we're going to talk a lot about munis. That's a very interesting, sexy area in fixed income tonight, so that's where we want to start. And then I will ask you just to leave your questions until the end, and we don't have traveling night, so you'll just have to raise your voice loudly like you do in all of my classes, and I'm sure you will. Let me see if I can find that easier.
Hi, so I'm just going to give you, again, I'm Sheila May, and I'm going to give you just a brief overview, as brief as I can be, as a municipal bond of the muni market from the perspective of a credit analyst. And so, again, just as a broad overview, we basically break the municipal bond market down into two sectors: the tax-backed sector and the revenue bond sector. The tax-backed sector is exactly what it sounds like. It represents those bonds that are secured secured by taxes. It could be sales taxes, income taxes, cigarette taxes, you name it. On the revenue side, those are the bonds that are issued by any government entities that are run very similar to businesses. So it's an enterprise operation, whether it be a college or university, whether it be a hospital, a water and sewer utility, airport, those types of government operations. And so we break it down into those two broad categories. Our analysis, irrespective of whether it's a tax-backed bond or revenue bond, is essentially the same and follows 5 primary factors. So you look at 5 primary factors in evaluating the credit quality of a municipal bond. And those 5 factors are, so get your pens out, those are in the professor's class. Those 5 factors are the security package, the economic profile, the financial performance, the debt burden, and then the last factor is somewhat of a more subjective one, but it is management competence and capability. So let's swing back to the first one, which is the security package. Again, whether it's a tax-backed bond or a revenue bond, we want to know what is secure in our bonds. How are we going to be repaid? And so we look at the pledge securing the bonds. For a tax-backed bond, it's obviously taxes. So, and it could be any 1 or 2 or 10 different taxes. However, in our market, the most common and the broadest pledge is called the General Obligation Pledge, or GO bond. And what that generally means is the full faith and credit of the issuer is being pledged to the repayment of the bonds. Now, with the bankruptcies that we've had in our market in recent years, that the interpretation of what that pledge means has certainly been contested, and we certainly don't have time to go into it in this event. But the reality of the situation is, with that GO pledge, what the issuer is basically telling you is, we are pledging to the repayment of the bonds all of the general operating revenues that are available to us. So for states, that means generally their biggest revenue sources on the from taxes are personal income taxes, sales taxes, and corporate income taxes, in that order. Now, there are 7 states, don't ask me to name them all, but there are 7 states that do not levy a personal income tax. So obviously those states have more dependence on sales and business taxes. But in general, when you're talking about a state GO pledge, the security behind that, the big piece of that are those 3 major tax sources that I talked about. At the local level, when we're talking about a GO bond, the primary tax that supports local governments is the property tax. And also included in that are state share taxes that come in the form of distributable aid. So when you get a GO pledge from the local government, what you're looking at really is local property taxes, and then whatever components of the state taxes are shared with them through local aid. So those are the general, that's a very, again, broad overview of what a security package looks like for a tax-backed bond. Swinging over to the revenue side, what we generally see with revenue bonds is what's called a net revenue pledge. So as bondholders, we're going to be repaid from the net revenues of the enterprise operation. So after the water and sewer system collects all of its water and sewer bills from the residents, pays the costs of maintaining and operating the plant and its employees, bondholders get paid. Certainly, it's in our interest as bondholders that that enterprise operation is up and running and continually operating. So we obviously need operating expenses paid for us, but we're the next ones in line. So the pledge there is, in most cases, is a net revenue of the enterprise system. So that pretty much covers security. There's lots of little add-ons and enhancements and reserve funds and things like that that aren't really relevant to this discussion, pertinent to this discussion. But that's what we look at. How are we going to get repaid? on to the next one, the economic profile. Whether it's a tax back bond, we want to look at the components and what are the drivers of the tax base and the economic base. When we're looking at revenue bonds, it's essentially the same thing. We're looking at what drives the growth and the stability of the service area that enterprise operation is serving. And so what we're looking at there is demographics, wealth levels, population trends, employment growth, who are the largest employers, what's the unemployment rate, how resilient is this economy in the cycle. We're looking at housing values, property values, those types of things. If it's a state we're looking at a much bigger picture of the makeup of its employment base, and the growth of its GDP. So those are the things that we're focusing on when we're looking at the economic profile. It's really not any different whether it's a GO or whether it's a tax back bond or whether it's a revenue bond. Moving on to the next factor, which is financial operations. So this is where we sort of roll up our sleeves and have to pile through a fair amount of financial documents, whether it be budgets, operating statements, annual audits, monthly cash flows, those types of things. And what we're really looking for here is what drives the revenues in this particular government. How diverse is that revenue stream? Is there dependence on one single revenue source, and how vulnerable is that? And then obviously, how well do the recurring revenues cover recurring expenditures? And is there any money left, sort of, at the end of the year? Also, we look at how much flexibility does the government have to raise revenues, whether it be taxes, whether it be water fees, sewer fees, and so on, in response to rising expenditures. And then at the same time, how much flexibility do they have to cut the budget, to cut expenses? And at the end of the year, is there any money left over? What type of reserves, if any, does this government have on hand in case of emergency or contingency? So, and we're also, obviously looking at trends. This is all sort of trend analysis. We're not looking at one year or one period in isolation, but over, studying the trend over 4 or 5 years. Moving on to debt. So the fourth factor is debt burden. And when we talk about debt burden, what we mean is not only how much bonded debt does the government have outstanding, but what are the other long-term liabilities. And the one that I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about in the press and so on in recent years has been pension liabilities. So to the extent that government is on the hook for retiree benefits, we need to know how much that, whether or not the assets in the pension plan cover the liabilities. To the extent that they don't, that unfunded piece, that unfunded pension liability is considered debt, not just by us, but by the market. So pension liabilities are added to standard bonded debt and other long-term liabilities, but those are the two big ones to determine what the debt burden is. Once we have that number, we then compare it to, for a tax-back bond, their tax base. How big of a burden is that relative to their tax base, to their revenue-generating capacity? How big is it relative to their annual operating budget? And how big is it relative to their population? So we'll get it on a per capita basis as well. And it gives us it's a great tool to be able to compare across credits, to be able to compare the debt and pension burden of one state versus another, or one local government versus another. And then lastly, the fifth component, the subjective one, is about management competence and capability. And that one is a little trickier in the sense the science, but getting a feel for what, certainly the tenure of the management and the administration that's in place, and also looking at whatever financial controls, oversight, checks and balances are in place. Some states run much looser, and, sort of by the seat of their pants than others. And that certainly trickles down, and is actually much more prevalent sort of at the local level. So we want to take a look at what safeguards are in place, but also what is their track record? How disciplined are they? Let's say when they put a budget together, do they just throw pie in the sky numbers in the budget for revenue projections so that they have an easy time presenting a balanced budget? Those types of things. And that, again, probably relies a little bit more on obviously, past performance and history, but that is an important factor as well. So those are, that's in a nutshell, the major factors that we look at when we try to, when we put an assessment together. In terms of my job and what I think most places do, we do assign a rating to our credits, similar to what the rating agencies do. And then, we provide a recommendation, which is, I would buy this, I think we should maybe hold this. This is actually one that it's okay right now, but if we need to raise cash, we should probably sell that. And then, of course, there's outright, we shouldn't own this, or we need to sell this right away type of thing. So, it varies from shop to shop, but essentially, the role of the analyst is to come to their own assessment, separate and away from what the rating agencies are doing. And I can talk to that, separately. But, and assign, not only a rating, but then a recommendation, for the portfolio managers and for the traders. Do you want me to touch on Chicago and?
Yeah, well, that's pretty exciting.
So I'm going to sort of test you now a little bit as to whether or not you were listening with New York and Chicago. So if you don't know, or you wouldn't have to know, but the City of New York general obligation bonds we're talking about is the rating on those from the rating agencies. Moody's rates New York City at AA2, which is, on a scale. Are they familiar with the? All right. So AA2, S&P AA, stable by both. City of Chicago, so New York being the largest city in the U.S. City of Chicago, third largest in the U.S. Moody's rating is BA1 negative, so below investment grade. S&P is sticking out a little bit, and it's triple B plus with a negative outlook. So here we've got the largest city in the U.S., third largest, on complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of rating. And so I'll give you the first, so going through the 5 security credit factors that I gave you, which one do you think is the biggest determinant in why Chicago is rated BA1 and New York is rated what is rated? And I'll give you one hint, it's not security. So out of 2, 3, 4, and 5, out of those factors, which one do you think is the biggest determinant as to why Chicago's is rated as low as it is? Any guesses? Okay. I'm sorry?
Management conflicts.
That's a very good guess. It's close. It's close. Number 2. What would be number 1?
The debt burden with my pension fund rating.
Exactly. So for Chicago, because of management incompetence, over a number of years, the city has failed to adequately fund its pension plan. And the unfunded pension liability is absolutely drowning the city. Just to use some Moody's statistics. So Moody's takes, and these are sort of the same types of metrics that we use, But Moody's takes the debt burden that I was talking about and the pension burden, and they compare it to the revenue-raising capability of the city. So they say, what is their debt and their pensions relative to how much they can generate in a given year? For the city of Chicago, their debt and pensions, unfunded pensions, represent 9.5 times of their annual revenues. For the average major city, it's 2.4 times. So their debt burden is huge, largely because of these unfunded pension liabilities that were caused by mismanagement over a number of years. Another way of looking at it, that's probably a clearer example, is 35 cents of every dollar that comes into the city of Chicago's general fund, 35 cents of every dollar has to be spent is directed to the repayment of debt or the payment of the pensions. And they're not even funding their pensions at the full required amount. If they were, it would be 50 cents of every dollar that comes into the city coffers has to be spent on debt repayment or pension contributions. That is unsustainable. You can't run a government when 50 cents of every dollar is being used for fixed costs. So hats off to both of you. Those are excellent answers.
All right, you can hear me okay, I think. So we have a team of credit analysts that do a similar job to what Sheila and her team do. And the next step in that process is to take that credit view, and sometimes, as Sheila said, an analyst will look at a credit. It tends to be a lower rated or a non-rated credit in the muni market. I only function in the muni market, so I'm all munis all the time. So if that analyst says, look, here are the fatal flaws in this credit, the general rule of thumb there is there's no interest rate or yield high enough on that bond that makes you want to own it. Or those of us who have been long enough, the yield is highest before it goes to zero, is the general rule of thumb, probably in any fixed income market. But more broadly, our analysts cover everything by sector. So really what they're doing is they're building up their own database of credit metrics and thinking about relative value. So there's that initial look at something for the first time. Is this a bond we would want to own in our portfolio based on that credit view? But then it becomes, do I like this credit better than something we already own? Is it a potential swap candidate? Do I want to be overweight or underweight? The way we function basically is we're trying to make money for our shareholders, obviously, but we're also basically trying to beat our benchmark, which means we're trying to beat our competitors. So we're offering not managing necessarily directly to that benchmark, but really being benchmark aware. So what I mean by that is, you might say, you know what, Chicago's a risky credit. It's a great example. But do we want to own zero? Do we want to own some? Do we want to have more risk related to that risky credit than the rest of the investing universe? Would we like to be neutral relative to the rest of the universe? Or do we just want to make sure we have some exposure, but we want to have less because we're concerned about it? And you can say that about anything in the portfolio, whether it's your interest rate risk, so whether your duration is long relative to your benchmark, short because you think rates are moving higher. You might have strong views about more attractive points on the yield curve, and I'm sure you guys will talk about some of that. And so you might get to your overall duration by different spots on the yield curve. So there's a lot of different factors. So there's the fundamental credit feeds into that, but then how do you build your portfolio or maintain the portfolio or figure out how you want to change it? So it may be that you might think credit spreads are really attractive. So you want to own more credit and start to shift the portfolio into higher rated, lower rated credits. So then you think about how you want to do that. Your analysts want to come up with the best ideas, and then you look for the best relative value across that spectrum of bonds. And then it's about sourcing those bonds. The muni market is an over-the-counter market. As an aside, I'd say if any of you have insomnia or are really interested in the muni market, one place you could go is msrb.org. That's a regulator of the muni market. And then within there, you'll find Emma, which is basically the sister of Edgar for public company filings. That's where munis deposit all of their filings. So if you find yourself interested in learning a little bit more, it's not a bad place to go as a starting point. But coming back to sort of building portfolios, you have to constantly be thinking about, do I want to have more cash or less cash, because I want to keep some powder dry based on those market conditions. What am I giving up for sitting in cash? Right now, you're not giving up a whole lot for sitting in cash in some cases. Do I want to own the long end of the yield curve? Do I want to own more high grades because credit spreads aren't as attractive in this marketplace? If I think credit spreads are attractive, are there fundamental drivers that say I'd rather own more healthcare bonds instead of toll road bonds and utility bonds in that revenue bucket of sectors that Sheila touched on? So you think about how you want to compose sectors, and then you're looking at what are the names you want to own within those sectors. We think in terms of those quality buckets. I kind of smiled when Sheila talked about the rating agencies, because part of our job is to beat the rating agencies to the punch. Or maybe more specifically, exploit things when our analysts disagree with those agencies, because they tend to be slower moving and not and very much a point-in-time approach to their credit reviews. So the best part of the day is when the analyst says, gee, this bond is rated single A, but I actually think it's a double A credit, or it's going to get upgraded soon, or I think it's triple B now, but there's no way this bond is staying triple B. And that gives you an executable trade in the portfolio to say, I can sell it at a triple B price right now, and we know it's not going to be triple B maybe or in a month or 6 months. Or vice versa, I can buy something at a single A bond price, and we actually think it's a double A credit. And those are the kinds of things that the analysts are constantly looking for. So we can exploit those differences, leveraging credit that way. So it's a very organic process. So in the muni market, so much of the market's business transaction comes from new issues. So think IPOs, but it doesn't mean new companies. They're existing governmental entities, they're existing colleges and universities, toll roads, airports. You can't go down the road without seeing a muni. Take a drive with a muni analyst, and we'll just point out about 27 things in 2 miles that have been financed with muni bonds. But the bulk of the market transactions come from the primary market. So we work our analysts every week, the whole process is to prioritize the new issues that are coming, but consistently knowing if an analyst that covers the hospital sector, there are 10 names that analyst really likes a lot, and we don't own too much of the bond. That's another issue with liquidity in our market. I think one of the things I really wanted to touch on is just how unique and disparate the muni market can be at times. Because in the equity market, if you want to go buy Google, you just go buy however many shares of Google you want to buy. It's not which one, generally speaking. So in the muni market, if you want to buy the city of Chicago, there are hundreds of CUSIPs. If you want to buy the city of New York, there are hundreds of CUSIPs, and that's why I mentioned Emma. You can go look them up, and the list is mind-boggling. So now you have to think about, how can I source those? So if you want to build a position and get to whatever level you're trying to achieve, and you want to go buy 5 million or 10 million or 100 million or whatever the amount is for your portfolio, you maybe can't just go buy one CUSIP. You can buy some in the primary market when that issue comes to market, but then you've got to figure out how you can go buy pieces of outstanding CUSIPs, and then the art comes in saying, what coupon structure do I want? You have to worry about call structures in fixed income. That affects the duration, how long the thing might be in your portfolio. It also still is a very badly valued aspect of fixed income, I'd say. So there's a lot of nuance in terms of paying for, if you want a higher coupon, maybe you're going to pay a higher dollar price. Would you rather have a lower dollar price and have a lower coupon structure? A lot of factors that go into that, and constant, working with the traders to make relative value decisions about, does the 4% coupon look more attractive on a spread basis versus the 5% coupon? Because the analyst is happy, we like the name, we want to own more of that credit. And now how do we want to source it, and what exact structure do we want to own, so that we can do what we need to do, either maintain the duration of the portfolio or the risk weighting of that particular credit, and that can be a moving target as well. So a lot of different factors make it, it's not, you don't just say, okay, Sheila likes New York or Sheila likes Chicago, go buy X million of that. There's not that same sort of take the order and go buy the position the way you would in some more liquid markets. That makes the over-the-counter nature of this market, I think, really interesting. The other thing, just like to point out from a, because it's an over-the-counter market, when the market's doing well and there's cash flow coming into it, it's pretty liquid, it's pretty high functioning and much more high functioning than it was when it started. But if people start to get scared by something, if you rewind the history tapes and go back and watch Meredith Whitney's interview on 60 Minutes from a few years ago, I guarantee you all of our Blackberries were on fire, because nobody had iPhones then. Our Blackberries were on fire that particular Sunday night, and people were terrified because they started pulling their money out because of this one crazy person. But all joking aside, there's, these are, in many cases, retail mutual funds. My colleagues have some differences, but in Putnam's case, retail mutual funds, you've got to know where clients are putting their money, whether there's any trends developing, whether they're moving money out of fixed income into something else, or your specific corner of the market, and that impacts cash levels that you keep on hand. Because you want to still be able to buy stuff, even if you might have shareholders redeeming, and you've got to return the money to those shareholders. In stressed markets, that can be less than a big pile of fun, but it also means that balance becomes that much more critical because the other guys are selling, and they're probably selling things you'd like to buy at now cheaper levels, so you've really got to keep that process going. But it's take the credit due, think about relative value from spread basis and structures, and then use all those tools to build the portfolio. I hesitate to say targets, but you generally know we want to be positioned relative to this benchmark in a particular way, and it's a constant process to adjust that based on changing credit views, changing interest rate views, and any other regulatory factors or other things that might come into play. But I think I'll stop there, because I think I hit most of the topics you had, and we'll see what else comes up later.
Start. If you think of investing as a three-legged stool, trading as the third leg away from portfolio management and research analysis. My seat's pretty much the seat that kind of ties everything together. You figure out my job within my firm is to recognize all of my research analysts' credit opinions and understand what the portfolio managers want to do on a day-to-day basis for their portfolios. So not only am I the information filter for our firm and figuring out market data and giving out color, I'm also kind of the fun part of the job, I would say. And you guys probably don't love talking to the street. It's being the filter to talk to the street and basically being the relationship manager for the firm as far as information coming in. So that gets pretty tedious. In a muni market where a lot of the business is still over the phone, we're going to learn, talking to Eric, how much things are going electronic. It's one of the last bastions where a lot of trading is still done via phone. So just last year alone, my firm, I dealt with 76 different firms where I did trades last year. So that's a lot of relationships I need to maintain. I maintain those relationships because part of my job is to get best execution for our clients. When you think about that, best execution is getting what you hope is the best level on the trade when you're trying to buy or sell bonds. And it's also trying to get as many bonds as you can in the issue as well, which is a great source of breaking bonds on names that are analysts and portfolio managers want to buy, talking about New York or Chicago, for example. So when we go back and talk about the Chicago New York trades, for example, to bring it back a little bit. So Chicago's a credit where it spreads really wide to the market right now. When we talk about spreads, the curves up there right now. The other yield curves up there right now. based off either the state of Maryland or South Carolina. Those are AAA credits. So when we talk about credits and spreads, those credits trade off of where the AAA credit is. It's kind of the same as if it incorporates, we use the Treasury as the risk-free rate. This AAA curve is the municipal equivalent of a risk-free rate. So municipal bonds, different credits will trade off of that curve. My job in my seat is to let everyone involved in our process know where spreads are in a certain name, and whether things are getting wider, whether things are getting tighter, where there's relative value, and where in the curve do we want to be involved. So Sally mentioned when you want to pick one of the hundreds of CUSIPs in New York City that you want to put a trade on, part of our job is to figure out, well, this part of the curve has been trading really cheap versus historicals. I think if you want to put a trade on for New York City, let's buy the 2030 part of the curve, for example, where spreads are wider. Now, New York City trades in a range that, in that part of the curve, a credit like New York City can trade anywhere from 25 over the AAA to, during times of weak liquidity or market stress, and get to 45 to 50 over. If we kind of determine one of our factors out there is that liquidity is kind of weak and the credit, there's no fundamental change to the credit, but things have gotten weaker, we'll point out that, hey, New York City's coming with a deal and at plus 50 right now. I think this looks like an attractive purchase. So that's part of our job to let the investment team know that. So that's what we'll try to do for bonds. If we can't get it on the new issue, we'll try to source them in the secondary. So again, part of my job is to deal with the street, figure out inventories, figure out who's got what, and let our teams know what is available in the marketplace. And then on a credit like Chicago, that's what we talked about, the disparity between those two credits. Chicago right now in the 10-year part of the curve, I guess we should take it back. We didn't mention, we'll talk about 10 years. New York City in the 10-year range right now is probably 30-ish over, 25, 30-ish over. Chicago right now is probably plus 250. So you're looking at yield right now, I think on that curve right now, probably show like a 185 yield. Maybe 185 for a New York City credit, where in 10 years, and Chicago is closer to a 4%. So almost double the yield for, actually, more than double the yield to buy the city of Chicago. Now, if credit analysts are comfortable with the Chicago credit, they think you should know a little bit of the portfolio. Our job is to source where bonds are and figure out where can we find that value. So if I happen to see an offering on a bond at plus 270, my job is to point that out. And I know our analyst says, hey, I think Chicago might be taking a better turn there, which we know not happening. But if that happened to be the case, and I saw an offering at plus 270, I might point that out. And we know the historical average right now, or the big market is plus 250. You can pick up an extra 20 basis points to put on that trade. And then that's where we come in. We tell the portfolio managers and the analysts where spreads are, what we can source, and then our job is to go, and if the trade comes to our trade blotter, our job is to go out with the street and execute that. And that's where the relationships come in. We bid ask comes in, and our job is, again, its best execution is to minimize that bid ask spread. So our job is to, with the relationships, hopefully we can manage that. We just use everything we can to leverage what we do on a day-to-day basis to get that best execution. So again, the trading aspect of it is understanding and realizing what our team is trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis, and at the same time relay that to the street and figure out the best way to source what we're trying to do, whether it's buying or selling. One thing I learned from a sage investor that I used to work with was, as a trader, your job is to take more information off a call than you give out. So I like to give out a little bit of information. It's like, dangling the nugget out there to figure out what you can get out of something. And then you try to get more information out of it so that you can report back to your team, and hopefully your clients and your investors are better served because of that. So that's one thing we try to do. I'm trying to think of other bullets that might be important for you guys to think about as trading. Relationships are key. One thing we talked about, we touched on briefly, is liquidity. market is definitely getting more electronic as we go on. As we talk about things we should be learning, I think, you know, in computer science and coding backgrounds are becoming much more important these days. I'm not a technology guy at all. I have a partner I work with who's knows a ton. I've learned so much in the last year just on technology with Drew Erickson. We're building all sorts of templates and all sorts of new execution systems that we're able to use to get the best execution. And if I were to lend advice out to everyone here, I'd say, you know, learn as much as you can on the technology front, because that's where it's all going. Trading's definitely going in that direction. You know, and we're seeing a pretty quick movement. And I know on my side, you know, all my trades are pretty much done voice, but I still execute them all electronically now. I think, am I the only desk in Wellington that is doing them all electronic now, or? Pretty much. Which is, we've come a long way, and I think all the desks we're using our desk as a model hopefully for this, and it sounds odd because so many of the other markets have trading systems where you can execute electronically. I'm still doing my trades via voice, but I'm executing them electronically so that, you know, when we talk about the back office and we talk about how to make it simplified, that's where everything's going. So I would lend that advice out that getting that background in technology is probably one of the most important things to do right now. So hopefully that's kind of a quick touch point of everything that we kind of, you know, a quick synopsis of what goes on in trading and how we kind of tie everything together.
Great result there. Thanks, Dave. So again, my name's Eric Tomas. I was a finance major at Bentley. Technically now I'm on the technology team at Wellington. So I started off in an investment firm on the business side, working for a couple different portfolio managers. Got a good understanding of the business, and then a handful of years later, a software company called me up and wanted me to work with their technologists to build software for portfolio managers, traders, and compliance personnel. And I had about a 4-year boot camp with that company and came to Wellington to run Wellington's trading systems for fixed income. So we're a little unique. We build everything in-house. Most firms, the majority of firms on the buy side, will buy an application off the shelf and try and do some tweaks on the periphery. So we have a dedicated team that's working with Lee and all the other traders and trying to figure out what we should do next, what we should build next. And, you know, it's everything from how do we protect the traders from keying in an error and causing a trading error to, you know, how do we prevent them from trading with the dealer we're not supposed to trade with, to nowadays, how do we help the traders source liquidity, and how do we get more electronic and less manual in the fixed income world. So I said we're a little unique because Lee talks to dealers all day long to execute trades. Dealers call my team all day long as well as vendors calling all day because they want to be connected into Wellington. And the way to connect is to talk to so we're more of a hybrid. I got a lot of business background on my team as well as hardcore developers and whatnot. So, and then I have people that are in between, finance majors with a little bit of CS background or inverse. They were CS and then we're in the finance on the side. So what we focus on is help making Lee and the traders more efficient. So in the fixed income market, used to always be really big sizes that you're trading and a lot less volume than you see in equity. And nowadays we're seeing, and there's things called the trace run, which is essentially like a trace report of all the trades that have happened. And I think as you mentioned, it's the MSRP. And you can see that the trade sizes are getting smaller and smaller every year across all the fixed income asset classes. And a lot of that's due to electronic trading. So a big focus we have is connecting our proprietary trading platform to both the dealers as well as vendor platforms out there that we can execute. And at the same time, predominantly we're focusing on credit right now, but we always get the muni last. Until Lee, this is the year of the muni, we're going to actually do work for them. All right. But because dealers don't have the inventory that they used to have, we now have to figure out and be more efficient. So Lee's not calling 12 different dealers, or traders aren't calling 12 different trying to connect our system to as many dealers as we can, as many vendors as we can, so we can basically aggregate all the flow that's out there in the marketplace, along with things like trace and MSRP, and focus on building a picture for the trader. So if the trader gets an order down from a portfolio manager, it might be in a specific name, or it might be, or something like this lead. And so our job is to give him a tool so he can ultimately put in parameters to help him figure out, well, where should I go? Who's offering this bond to me, and where should I think about the price on this particular bond? And then after I execute this, I want the system to snap a picture of this because of new regulations. There's things you'll hear about, like MiFID II in Europe, where we have to prove best X, and where did I get these prices from, and how does it compare to other prices on the street? So we do a lot of focusing on that. And then, of course, all the dealers want our business, and so they can call Lee all day, but Lee a lot of times, or his team will direct them to, you got to talk to Eric or his team, because we need to get what's called I mentioned this earlier to some of the faculty, we try and do everything what we call for fixed, and it has nothing to do with fixed income. It's a protocol of how we communicate electronically between our systems and the dealers or the vendors. It stands for Financial Information Exchange. And basically, I was saying earlier, our equity team is not allowed to do a trade on the phone unless it also goes over fixed. And that protects us from making a fat finger mistake, not agreeing. We come up, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit as far as confirming trades at the end of the day and things like that. But you'll get occasions where a dealer said, no, that was the price that we agreed to on the phone. And you basically are arguing over a phone call or going back to a tape. But fixed kind of helps you with that because you're both putting in your prices on this fixed message. There's an electronic agreement, and so on and so forth. There's varying degrees of electronic. And Lee mentioned he's fairly electronic right now, but he mentioned he does a lot of these trades on the phone, but we push it across electronically. There's other degrees in fixed income. Our treasury, our rates group, which trades treasury futures quite heavily in treasury bonds. 99.9% of those trades we do is literally, there's no phone interaction. There's a trader hitting a button and seeing the price that they like and trading it. Much more like equity when we're trading bond futures, because we could have an order to buy 5,000 contracts of a particular bond future, and we might get 5,000 executions back because an algorithm was literally buying, and the algorithm is actually doing the buying and doing it in smaller increments. And so what we're starting to do with that is move that to other asset types, such as corporate bonds. We have smaller pieces of corporate bonds and a lot more volume on the desk. We can't keep hiring more traders, so we want to find what we call low complexity orders and potentially send those down to algorithms as well. So to give you an idea of another thing we do, it hasn't made it to Meeting Land yet, I don't know if it ever will, but for government bonds and futures, and we're going to start to do it with corporate bonds next year, is anytime a portfolio manager is sending down an order from their system into the trading system, we have a tool that sits in between. You could call it a filter, you could call it smart router, although it's not a good term for it. And basically we set up a number of parameters. If it's this type of security and DV01 is less than, X amount, and you can trade with these particular brokers, and there's no limit price, it's a market order, and there's no comments to the trader. It's a very clean, low complexity order. The machine's going to take that and auto-route that to one of these algorithms or destinations. So we've been doing that even in fixed income with the real liquid products like treasuries and governments. And as I mentioned, we're starting to get into that for corporate bonds as well. But even taking it a step further, things like munis now, which you never really went on an electronic trading platform and really hit a button with a lot of voice, a lot of Bloomberg messaging. There's systems out there now that are starting to introduce muni trading, and not just for like a retail investor, for a buy-side shop like a Wellington and a Putnam and things like that. And where it gets really interesting is that we've made great traction in with credit trading. I know it's in the infancy stage of muni dealers that Lee and company call up don't hold all these bonds anymore on their balance sheet like they used to. They have to call other firms and try and source the liquidity for them. And so now the buy side is really the ones with the balance sheet. So the problem is we don't call up and say, if you happen to have this bond, or I'm looking to sell this bond. So what's moved from the equity side to the fixed income side is basically, you can call it dark pool or anonymous type trading, where we can actually engage with the GWK or Putnam or Fidelity or BlackRock or Pinto, but we don't know it's them on the other side of the trade. We send them a list of bonds that we're looking to sell or even buy, and they do the same. And behind the scenes, there's a matching algorithm that will match up CUSIP against CUSIP, very similar to how it works in equity. And when there's a match, we can agree to a price, and then there'll be an intermediary that steps in between so that we never know we're working with Putnam. And I think a lot more is going to head in that direction, especially with the balance sheet implications. And it's just starting with munis. The biggest difference between the equities and the fixed income and trading this way is, in the equity world, there's a very finite number of tickers and symbols out there, right? And just munis alone, I think you get over 500,000 CUSIPs, and then mortgages, you add in another 2 million, and then credit, you know, so there's so many CUSIPs out there that the odds of matching on a CUSIP is very slim, unless that CUSIP was issued in the last, say, 60 days. Otherwise, there's a less likelihood here to match. So then that takes you to technology again. All right, so how do we match more often when we're trading? We get what you call like fuzzy matching. All right, I might be looking for this particular name or this particular tenure or this particular ratings band. And then the matching engines will find things that are in that ballpark and we can start negotiating with your peers. I mentioned this caveat to the faculty earlier. At Wellington, Lee and I have been there 10 years, and I think our head count on the equity trading desk has been completely flat, and our volumes have just gone through the roof year over year. It's a lot of it's because of technology and making the traders more efficient and letting the traders concentrate on the bigger, more complicated trades and letting the machines help facilitate less risky trades. On the fixed income side, we've still been growing, but management is like, I can't keep hiring traders. What can technology do to help out? So that's where things like low touch and no touch trading come into place. And it's interesting because a lot of times brokers come in for meetings with the traders, and the traders will typically take someone from my team to a meeting. And the vendors and brokers are always like, we don't get this. A lot of companies where we have your IT team also coming with the traders. It's interesting. That's about it.
Okay, so, you said that conductors are really the stool, and I'm the person that keeps the ground underneath the stool nice and tight. Because a lot of shit will end up there. So, my job is, I oversee the operations on the fixed income trading floor, the trading assistant report to me, I sit on the trading desk, and I report into one of the co-heads of fixed income, a wonderful gentleman named Sam, who makes the rate calls. So, in terms of a lot of what everyone here was talking about, I understand a lot of what they do, and at Putnam, we are very much of the philosophy that if you don't understand what's going to happen to your trade after you execute it, then you've got no business executing. In part because a lot of things can go wrong, and it's well and good to have brilliant analysts like Sheila say, okay, here's what I think, and then Faye comes in and she's like, okay, this is what I want. And then we get the execution in the portfolio. That's actually the easy part. After that, you've got to get the trade reconfirmed with the dealer because, no offense, people make mistakes. So my team will go through and do an initial confirmation and release it downstream as close to real time as possible. Then my back office will step in and they'll do an electronic confirmation through public and copy on an allocation method. So we could be executing for one account, we could be executing for 30 accounts. But the dealer needs to respond back and be accountable for each and every part of that trade. I hold our back office to a trade date standard for their confirmation, or pisses me off if they miss something and they get caught. We generally get everything confirmed by about 10 o'clock on trade date plus 1, which is why I think the trade date plus 1 is possible. I think it's just a mental block that we put ourselves in. So once we've executed the trade, if it doesn't settle, for example, Valley could be needing to raise cash for a redemption. She's selling out securities and the securities don't settle. Well, client still wants the money, but we don't have the funds in, so we don't know. So my team acts as an escalation point. Ultimately, I see my job as one of which I'm sort of protecting Thalia so that she can have her great, wonderful facts and not deal with the other clients. Which means that I deal with legal, I deal with compliance, I deal with accounting, I deal with custody, I deal with the dealers a lot. I also deal a lot with industry changes that are happening. I'm very active with the regulatory reform initiatives that aren't necessarily impacting the news as much. But in terms of derivatives and other background stuff that's happening. So I think that I don't know, if I had a hat, it would be really big. From all these interesting facets, but I can tell you that I love my job, and I love the people that I work with. And these guys all sound sexy and really feeling awesome, and that's because they are. But the ability to interact with them on a daily basis means that every day my job is done. And I'm learning something every day. And I think, I don't know, as I tell people, I thought I was hired someone and I said I can be a friend or not. So I can help you get out of a situation, and that's how I behave in the best way for the firm, but I can help in a situation where things are going to be really bad. And the one thing that I would say is if you feel like there's a mistake, or if there's, no matter where you're going or what you're doing, if you think that something is wrong with your gut, it's like, okay, something's wrong, raise your hand. Because the only really stupid question is the one that you get asked by like your boss and boss and boss, which is why don't you say anything? Right? No one wants to be answering that. So just, I guess, escalate and let the people who know how to navigate things fix it. Because there are ideas that I can have that I would never, ever be able to have in my life. But there are problems that I can solve that you have no idea how to approach. So, I could be talking about operations. But
Yeah, so how did you end up where you are?
oh, I'm like the worst person to ask that because I've got no business background. My background is heavily in liberal arts. So I've got a master's degree in English and a master's degree in philosophy. And I've got a lot of interesting thoughts happening in my head. So I started in the back office. I was hired as a temporary employee eons ago in our international settlements area. And all of my job was to pick pages on the fax machine and make sure that they were ticked off as having been sent. That's an indication of how long ago I started. And I just worked very, very hard. And I took a lot of, I guess, in hindsight, they were great risky moves, but at the time they were scary risky moves to get away from. But a lot of it was, honestly, is perseverance. And operations sounds boring, and it kind of is, if you're an accountant, I guess. I don't think it's but in terms of, what I get to do, that's where the bulk of the activity is. You talk about electronic trading coming in, and how we're trying to make the traders more efficient, and the analysts and portfolio managers more efficient and whatnot. But all of the regulatory reform, all of that that's happening is going to be pushed in on that middle level. Not necessarily in the accounting and custody areas, but just one level above that, which is where my team sits. So for those of you looking to get in on sort of what the action is and get exposed to brilliant minds, I would say that looking at a place that allows you to sort of, I don't know, swim around in that trading system is pretty good. But I did not have a conventional path.
But it's a good segue if you want to get into the business, it's good to start on, right?
Well, it is, because if you don't, honestly, if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know the nuts and bolts of it, of the portfolio, how the portfolio is working, and not just from a pricing standpoint and from how the bonds are performing and whatnot, but in terms of, okay, if there's a call on a bond, what happens? if I have to go in and break a trade because half of it's gotten called, how do I do that? What does that mean? I mean, that, all of that stuff is really important, and knowledge is never enough.
So I'm going to open it up to questions in just a minute, but I wanted to ask each of you how many books you up at night, but like a short, scary thing that makes you sob when you're driving home, go, oh my God. So what takes over anything in the last year, maybe when the financial crisis and what happened in the week, whatever. So anybody can speak right up.
I think those moments of extreme stress on liquidity they can turn out to be great investment opportunities, but it can take some amazing intestinal fortitude and making sure you're all rowing in the same direction. And there's the, when bond prices are dropping, there's the catch the falling knife analogy. Everybody loved it at, let's say, par, but all of a sudden that same bond is now at 90 and everybody hates it. At 80, they hate it more. And it's probably the worst par, but who steps in to provide liquidity in those moments? So I think during heavy redemption periods that become more about almost quasi-irrational behavior in the marketplace, because you can't control for those. It doesn't matter how good your credit research is. It doesn't matter how you've got a good portfolio that you can extract liquidity out of it if you don't have enough cash in. But those moments of thinking, this market's kind of swirling out of control, and there are great opportunities, but are we going to be able to have enough cash to take advantage of those opportunities? And those are very rare instances, but there have been cases where, another investor out there, it's a little bit like, you went to the party and you didn't drink, you're a designated driver, but now the other guy coming at you has 19 beers, and that's impacting the market. And you can't control for that one, and it's navigating those. I think how you get a manage around those is probably I don't lose sleep over those, but in those extreme cases when those have occurred, they can take a couple years off their life.
I'd say, as a trader, we're on Bloomberg all day. I think that's not the trading room over there. But a lot of what we do is done through instant Bloomberg chats. And in the world we live in now, with legal compliance is just massive. We talked in the faculty earlier how much growth there is in the legal compliance area. I think there's a lot of jobs, anything can be misconstrued by the regulator in a chat. So I used to think about it more. I still think about it every day. I think about what I type on a chat every day. And one of the things they kind of teach us in our seat right now, we have to sit down with our compliance every year to go through a whole, basically, a very long boring session about what not to do. And anything you say can be taken and put on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. And the second you do that, the second you kill your career, you kill your firm's reputation. We talk about things rolling downhill, that's they roll downhill really quick. You just think about terminology, you got to be very, very careful with the words and what you say on the phone, what you say. The phone is not bad. Maybe don't get paid as much anymore because firms don't want that liability as much. But anything you write on these Bloomberg chats can just be so misconstrued. And all of a sudden, something I typed into a portfolio manager once talking about a credit and what I thought about it and why I thought something should be a good sale. Because it always gave me a look on a situation where we thought I could get a good price. The email came back through the forensics team. One of these got a huge forensics team now, right? I don't know how many people are in that group. It's like forensics can come back all of a sudden, hey, it was maybe like 2 months later. What did you mean by this? And where did you get that from? And how are we supposed to take this? Did someone give you a special look on what does that mean? I'm sat there going, it's scared for my life. Like, what what do you mean, what does this mean? It's exactly what it means. They don't, but these people don't know what it means. And they think that I got some special, you know, idea or some, you know, whether it was an email about something buying or selling. It's the fact that I typed that we got a look on something, which is typical because part of our job is to get as many first looks as you can in the seat that we sit in, so our clients get the first opportunity. That's part of the whole relationship thing. And just the fact that that word got the quote-unquote look, it was so misconstrued by this internal regulator, by our forensics team, that once I explained everything, it made sense. But the fact that I had spent this much time on about an email that I typed 3 months ago, and these guys are going back years ago on things. And so when we talk about what scares us at night, it's or what keeps us up. It's things you may have typed 2 or 3 years ago that you meant nothing about, but all of a sudden someone questions what you wrote. So that's where the